Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Robert Matson, and welcome to Hear the Story. And I am very lucky here today to have Josh Sims with the Culture Connection Project. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's not often that I have someone whose studio looks way better than mine, but yours does look way better than mine.
Yeah, well, we all come from the same field of creative, you and I, and so we like to play with our cameras and everything.
Very true,
Yeah.
but I have no neon. You rock the neon, my friend.
Hey, man, it's not hard to get. You can pull off a neon for sure.
Well, I think I might. So, everyone, Josh is the CEO and co-founder of the Culture Connection Project. Josh, what is the Culture Connection Project?
So we are a nonprofit, volunteer run, and our mission is to build appreciation and understanding among people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. So we have a couple different programs, different ways of executing that, but the main one that we're known for right now is our Uganda program, where we're taking people from around the world, international participants, and we bring them into Uganda for a cultural exchange. Also, there's volunteering involved, but at this point, it's really pretty an intricate experience that we've designed over the years.
Well, it's great. So, Josh, not I've never been to Uganda. I don't know a lot of people who've been to Uganda. How start?
Man, if you really want the story here, this is going to be a minute because it goes
That's all
back a
right. Well,
while.
that's what we're here
We got
for.
time. All right, good. So, I mean, we're going back like 20 years right now, but hold on, we'll get there. But there was a Ugandan man, and that's important. He came from his own village named John Wanda, and his wife Joyce, and he won a lottery to come over to the United States. John and Joyce had never been to the United States, and they thought the United States, just like Uganda, only had one airport out of the capital. So what they did was they flew from Entebbe, which is the capital of Uganda, over to Washington, D.C., got out of the airport, and was like, hey, let's take a cab to L.A. They had no concept as to how big the country is, right? And the cab driver's like, you can't do that. There's no way to take a cab to L.A. So what they did was they spent the night in Arlington, Virginia. John got up in the morning and was like, let's just settle here. We can do this. So his kids went to the Arlington, Virginia school system. When he saw that school system, he was like, I want to start something like this in my home village. And my aunt happened to be a teacher. Her name's Catherine Jones. She happened to be a teacher at that school that his kids, John's kids, went to. And so when John decided to do this, my aunt was one of the first people to actually, come in and help. And through that, she went over to Uganda. After that, my parents went to Uganda, and then in 2012, because my family was kind of involved in this and building up this school in this rural village, I ended up going. And it at first, going to a place like this, it was very rural, a relatively poor community, the second poorest actually out of all of the 111 districts in Uganda. I was nervous to do much because I didn't really have a lot of knowledge as to what this culture was. It felt very delicate. It felt, especially as a white male, I could do more harm than good potentially. And
Sure.
so what I did was not much for the first probably 5 years. I kept coming back because I built these relationships. I had these, it felt like a family in this village. I loved it. I loved these people. I loved the culture. And so I kept coming back, but really like what I did was I learned and I built these relationships. Um, and it wasn't until 2016 when I brought my co-founder Dion, where for the first time we went on this week where they didn't have classes, and Dion started to run a basketball class at this school. And the kids just loved it, and I could just see this value exchange happening in front of me, and all I was kind of doing was sitting back and watching this happen unfold. And I was like, wow, this right here is something special. How do we scale this? And so I started to kind of bring some people. And then after the next trip, when I brought a group and we ran a program at this school, all with different activities, I'll never forget. I was flying back home. I was in the plane, and I swear to God, I just had this vision of kind of like different people of different ethnicities, backgrounds, belief systems, whatever it may be, unified within that diversity under like black hats and a white logo. And I know what the logo was. I know what the name was. I know any of that, but like, it was very clear. I was just like, boom, this is it. And I landed and I called Dion and I was like, we need to start a nonprofit, and we can we can base this around this cultural exchange and this mutual understanding of trying to understand one another, and this effort, this conversation. So we do operate primarily in Uganda right now. That's what we're known for. However, what we do is in no way unique to Uganda. This mission of kind of building relationships and appreciation for one another, it's needed more in the United States now than ever.
Sure.
And so we're focusing on that. That's something we're working on. We're looking at an India program. We're looking at a Guatemala program. But there's so many different nuances on how we execute this this mission. It's become something that I'm just really excited about, and it's very fun. I love it.
Well, you can hear the passion. And for people that don't know, I've known Josh for a number of years. We used to work together at one time, and I
Yeah,
met him when he was interviewing me. And
yeah,
during
that's
the
right.
interview, he actually told me about this event, which is not usually what you talk about during an interview, but I think it was one of the things that immediately has connected us because you were so passionate about it, and I thought it was amazing when I heard about it. Now,
Yeah,
you
I
mentioned
mean,
that.
oh,
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
No, no, no. Tell you.
I was just gonna say I can ramble on this stuff, like I said earlier. So if I do start to do that, feel free to cut me off and interrupt me because I can
I
go.
never have an issue with that, Josh. Never
Okay,
have an
cool,
issue.
great.
But you said a lot of people have become part of this program over the many years you've done it. What
Yeah.
kind of people come to this event and participate, and why do they do it?
So so we focus on culture fits for a program like this. And what I mean by that is the group itself is important. So we're bringing 17 people. We're going in a week from right now. We're bringing
Wow.
17 people over there. Yeah. So, I mean, this is around the corner for me at the moment. We only go once a year. So it's a big event for me. Um, and the group itself is designed to be to culturally diverse. We're looking for international participants. We're looking for participants within from different backgrounds themselves so that the group is a cultural exchange. And then
So
what
it's not
happens
just
is
U.S. citizens; it's people from
no.
you've got international presence that are coming with you to New
Yeah,
York. Got
it's primarily US. We have one Canadian this year, but Canada seems to love us, especially Toronto. Shout out Rima, and she
it.
went in our last trip. But and then we have someone from India coming, and she's actually the person who wants to focus on the India program coming up, and that's Jasmine. And then within the states itself, you know, there's a lot of diversity from where they're coming from. We're talking about people from California. We do have someone from Boston. I hadn't known him previously to this recruiting people for this experience, but he's from Boston, like myself. But New York, Milwaukee, Florida, North Carolina. So it is like all the way across the states. And then in terms of ethnicities, we have a majority people of color, and I mean, there's only two white people, myself included, going, and so like, and that's a whole bunch of different ethnicities. That's something we do very purposefully. Uganda, people who go to Uganda traditionally have been more white, you know, and often more from kind of well or privileged backgrounds because they're the people who can afford something like this. And
Mhm,
so we keep the costs super low to a complete bare minimum. None of us make any money off of this trip, so that
mhm,
all of the cost for our participants go to their own expenses, travel, accommodations, food. And that way cost isn't as much of a deciding factor, so we're able to get participants from lower income communities, and because we're a third of the cost that you would usually see for something like this.
mhm,
So that really opens up the door for cultural diversity. And then once you have that cultural diversity and you're in Uganda, everyone perceives the experiences differently because you have different backgrounds, and all of those perceptions are valid, you know. And so the conversations you start to have over, we call them family dinners, which we do every single night, are really interesting because you have a group of people from different backgrounds. They're going through an intense, culturally submersive experience, seeing things that they had never seen before, connecting with Ugandan change agents who are doing incredible things within their own communities. And then the conversations we have, people have different feelings, different emotions, different understandings, and guiding the group through those so that it's a respectful and productive dialogue is fascinating. And I find that it really helps to bring these people together.
and when you talk about this, I know that you said that it started with a basketball workshop,
Mhm. Yeah,
but
that's right.
I know that people bring a lot of different skills and they share a lot of who they
Yeah,
are and their interests.
yeah.
So what kind of things do people share when they go on these trips?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do, which is kind of the highlight of the trip, I would say, we've now made a lot of Ugandan partners. We started with just the school that I described earlier that John Wanda founded, which is called Arlington Academy of Hope under the Reach Foundation. Amazing school, doing incredible things.
Mhm.
So we started with just focusing on there, but as we continued to go and our brand kind of expanded and our people began to learn about us, um, we had a flood of Ugandan partners, and we still do to this day. People who wanted us to connect with them and shine a spotlight on their efforts, whether they be schools or orphanages or all kinds of really interesting stuff led by these Ugandan change agents. So we do go back to that school. Um, and when we're at that school, we do run a program much like the basketball one that you're talking about, where we have 3 days and 3 classes per day. Each class is 45 minutes, and all of the participants who we bring are tasked with designing kind of one class that's kind of like a camp-like experience. Again, we're not trying to teach. We're not trying
Mhm.
to kind of influence. The purpose of the class is to have fun, to connect with the students, to also occupy the students because the teachers have to grade tests, and so the students have nothing to do.
Right.
But really just have a good time. So basketball is our flagship program. There's always a basketball class going there. Now we've got a few people who do it, which is awesome. And they've put up hoops and everything. It's really cool. But there's been so many great classes. Tie-dye was one Shailene did on our last trip. Cece did exposing like prints. She had these pieces of paper where the sun could expose silhouettes of leaves, etc., so that kids could find these leaves, put them on there, and then the sun exposed them, and they got these really awesome pieces of art that they had created. There's photography, there's kickball, there's all kinds of stuff. Everyone comes in with something new, and so it's a special week. It's really a special week.
So for that particular school, the teachers get a break, which I'm sure they
Yes,
appreciate. The
they do.
kids get new experiences. What
Yes.
about the people that go? What do they learn? What do they get
So
out of this trip?
it's a great question. I like to think each person gets something kind of different and unique to themselves. Um, Personal growth is something that I focus a lot on for the participants who go. I like to say that there's 2 experiences happening. One is an external experience. We're on this trip. We've structured this tour up the east side of the country. We're meeting with all these change agents. The second one is an internal experience, an internal trip. And that is an emotional experience. It's probably at times an uncomfortable experience, and growth happens through uncomfort. Um, and I think there's a lot of self-reflection. And so depending on the person, I think they take something different away from it. We do focus a lot on right now we're starting to bringing youth from poorer communities and potentially youth sometimes that might um, walk down not the best path or problematic paths. And what I've heard from my partners like Showtime, who she's really passionate about this. She's from Southeast DC. She sees her own community. She went on the trip in 2019 and she saw the change within herself. And now she's super passionate about bringing other people from our community because it changes her perspective. But and Dion is the same. He'll say that changed his life in the same way. But bringing people from environments where an opportunity like this and a perspective change might change their path and influence their direction in life, which is amazing. It's great. So there are people within the organization who live within those communities, um, and kind of direct those efforts. I'm very
Mhm.
much, and it's important for me to say that because um, this is where the complications of me being a white male come into play sometimes. I very much I lead the organization, but through following and listening to the people who kind of know these communities best, whether they be Ugandan change agents in
Mhm.
Uganda. They know what they need. I don't know what they need. So what I do is I bring people to them and I put a spotlight on them and I ask them and they're able to teach these participants. All I do is connect people. And the same thing with people from some of these poorer communities that we're finding a huge surge of people are now coming on the trip from these communities, and it's very much it's similar. I trust people within those communities to guide me and this nonprofit as to what is appropriate, how do we manage these complications, and they do, and it's great.
No, that's absolutely fantastic, and it's good that you've got so many people with so many different viewpoints about connecting people from different backgrounds. And as U.S. people, U.S. citizens, sometimes we don't know a lot beyond our borders,
Yeah,
and sometimes we don't know a lot beyond our cities or our states. So,
absolutely.
just I think you're creating culture connections within your organization and the
Yep.
groups that go, and then you are
And
broadening
it's
those to the different groups,
that's
different
right.
countries, places.
It's very important that we look that way as our organization. Like, again, the staff here is incredibly diverse. They all have their individual cultures, and then they work to spread what we do into those cultures and make those connections. Jasmine grew up in India. She's gonna run the India program. You know, she
Yep.
knows those people. She knows those, and Dion is focusing on Milwaukee right now and recruiting through the school systems he came up in, and has been able to get donations from organizations that helped him when he was younger playing basketball, and so you see that, you know, people are passionate about kind of bringing people together. There's just no central point sometimes, and that's what we try to be, is that central point, that place where everyone can kind of come together. And so
Yeah,
it's really fun. Yeah.
yeah, I really think that is you're kind of a mobile cultural exchange,
That's
and
right.
you're going to different places, and I think that's it's an amazing thing to
Yeah.
get us to understand each other from regardless of our backgrounds.
Yeah.
And there's
And real one note, you just said, a lot of people don't travel, like, outside the country. Every year, we've had participants who've never left the United States before. This year, we have 4. Um, and some people have never left their neighborhood. And so this is the, you know, we've had people who've never gotten on a plane. And so this is really kind of an experience, which is why it's so important that the price point stays low, because it's important that cost isn't a problem here. But, like, this is an experience and an opportunity that I feel like, you know, I love that we're bringing it to people who necessarily wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. It's great.
yeah. And I think, Josh, one thing I do want to point out in case someone doesn't understand, when you say the price point remains low, you make negative thousands of dollars every trip. I'm sure you
I,
lose
I don't
money
I don't
every.
like
You
to
don't
say
make a
that.
cent off of this. This is
I
not
don't make
about
any
money.
money. Yeah.
This is just about being able to do it and making sure that people
Yeah.
that want to participate can.
The money, talking about the money is important. Not enough nonprofits do. We
Mhm.
are very transparent as to what this money goes to. I think next year, honestly, I would love to have just some kind of automated system where you see every penny that goes in and out of our nonprofit, and it's just kind of like a spreadsheet everyone can access in the world. Um, I will go into, the operational costs for our nonprofit are covered by a donation from my 9 to 5 salary. I have a 9 to 5. Right now I'm on my lunch break. That's how I'm able to do this. And so that at least gives us a baseline where we don't have to funnel money from our donors into ourselves.
Mhm.
Um, People do donate to our cause, but honestly, not often. Like, usually we are pushing for our partner causes. It's I would say 90 to 95% of donations go right to, like, our, whether it be Home of Hope Orphanage. That's a big one for Giving Tuesday. We're trying to raise $3,000 for Home of Hope. 100% of that money will go directly to Home of Hope. We are taking absolutely no percentage. And that's the same with the donations, or the trip fee, the 2,500. There is money baked into that go to our Ugandan partners as donations directly to them, but there is no money that goes from that 2,500 into the CCP's operational costs. Say nothing like that. So this I like to be transparent, even to the point where this is the first year where my expenses and Dion's expenses for going on the trip are covered. That part we've covered. We're covering expenses,
Mhm.
but this is the first year where we're covering expenses. In the past, I've paid my way in the same way that, like, my participants have. But I do like to be incredibly honest as to, like, this is what we do, this is what we don't do, and there's reasons behind all of it. We're very thoughtful around it.
I'm sure everyone appreciates that. So we know that you don't make that. That's not the type of return you get from the investment of your time and your
Yeah.
passion and the emotion that you put into it. But you do get things back. And I'm sure you said you have a 9 to 5. I know what you do. Why don't you share what you do? And when you come back from your trip in Uganda,
Mhm.
what do you when you go back in that first day to your 9 to 5,
Mhm.
what do you bring back from the trip that helps you be better at your job, a better person, a better
Yeah.
member of the community?
Yeah. So, I cringe when people say I do this for free, and that's not a line. I really do. I don't like, that because it's not true. I probably get more out of this than anybody. I in so many different ways. Monetary value, I mean, I get lessons from the Culture Connection Project in the form of I have to be leading these people through kind of diverse and hard experiences, and there's so many learnings you take from that. And then I in my 9 to 5, I lead a brand team, and I mean, I love my 9 to 5. I'm super passionate about what I
And
do.
by the way, I know you. It's not a 9 to 5.
It's not a it's but it's I mean, I'm really lucky in that I kind of have these 2 worlds, and I love both of them. Like Dynatrace, which is my 9 to 5, awesome company, awesome job, awesome team, awesome everything there. And then, the Culture Connection Project, which is a completely separate thing. However, in my mind, they do kind of feed each other a little bit because I make money at Dynatrace, and then a percentage of that sustains operational costs for the Culture Connection Project. But then the Culture Connection Project, I do things like this, like being interviewed by you and doing things that I may not have the opportunity to do at my 9 to 5. But then those experiences shape me as a person and allow me to grow and allow me to kind of expand myself and evolve. And then I bring that everywhere I go, even in my career, of course, but my personal life. And so I do like to say that, sure, Dion, everyone at the CCP, we built this for free, but it also is building us. So like it is a mutual exchange, and it's not for free. If I didn't, and I'll be honest again, I like to be transparent about this stuff. If I didn't get something out of it, I wouldn't do it. Like
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth. I love what I get out of it. I get to have these experiences. I feel purpose driven through it. It's satisfying for me.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. So, Josh, what is the vision down the road? What's going to happen with the CCP moving forward?
Oh man, so much. Like people who know me know I'm a big picture guy, and I'm looking 5 years down the road at kind of at all points, maybe too much because I get too distracted out there and I need to execute like what's happening right in front of me. Um, CCP is there's so much opportunity in the future right now. If you go on this trip, if you were involved with one of our programs, I never ever hear anything but this is going to be huge. It's hard to describe without having actually experienced what this is. We in the short term, next few years, we're focused on. I mean, this set right here is for a podcast. With this podcast, what we want to do is we want to interview the change agents of places like Uganda and expand their reach. Right now, we bring people to them, but in the digital world right now, they actually all have Zoom. They can get on FaceTime, and so we can interview them and have people hear about the things Grace Nakamura is doing with starting the first soup kitchen ever in Uganda in Kampala, feeding 300 people a day over there. It's
Wow.
amazing. Yeah,
Yes.
it's there's just incredible efforts happening by incredible people in this country, and being able to put them on a platform where people can hear about what they're doing and then donate and help, because that's important. You need to be educated and then you can help. The education happens first, and education needs to come from the source, and then money can go to the source. But Grace can get on and she can teach what she's doing, and then people can help her. So that's just the podcast. We are, like I said, looking at India as a second program. Jasmine spearheading that for us, and then a Guatemala program. Most of the people doing this with me were high school friends. Dion, I've known since high school. Anna, Tico, like Nick, my boy Shay, who created the name the Culture Connection Project. We all went to high school together, and we're a diverse group within ourselves. And
Mhm.
so, one of our high school friends is Jose, and he's from Guatemala. And so I've been on with him, being like, "Hey, we need to do a program there," and he's like, "Yes." And then there's all kinds of opportunities in the States. It's the easiest place. I think we started with the hardest part of doing something like this, which is Uganda, and bringing it. That's not easy. But
Yeah.
I mean, like, right in Boston, there's so many opportunities for just bringing people from different backgrounds for dinner together. It doesn't need to be a big trip. It doesn't need to be like something super produced. We can execute this mission in small little ways. And then if you want to talk big vision in terms of what's the future, I like to say that hate has a really good brand these days. Everyone knows what like the swastika looks like. Everyone knows what the KKK's uniform is. There's visuals that you tie to hate. There's not a lot on the other side of that. And so, yeah, and I ask this question to people. I say, like, if you think of like a brand of love or an organization that represents like appreciation and understanding of one another and united diversity, like what comes to mind? And they'll say, I mean, I've heard the peace sign, but there's no organization behind the peace sign. I've heard the Peace Corps, but most people don't know what their logo is. And so like, and the visual, at least for me, I'm a brand guy. It's what I do in my 9 to 5. It's important to me. And so like, you know, that was the first thing I saw again on that airplane was the diverse people, diverse beliefs, no one trying to convert anybody. Instead trying to learn from one another instead of preach, and all united under a brand. And so that's what I like to say is kind of that's what CCP's large thing is it is a brand of appreciation. And I want to own that space. I want to be the polar opposite of those visuals of hate that we see these days, sometimes more than ever. And something needs to balance that out.
It's a worthy goal and very well put. I do appreciate that.
Thanks.
Josh, the last thing I want to end on is how do people learn more? How can they contact you? How can they help after they're educated?
Yeah.
So how do they do that?
Now they're educated. So a bunch of places. I would say the place to really keep up with us is probably Instagram. We are the.ccp. That's the.ccp. You know, of course we have Facebook. I like stuff like that more because we do post a lot. You're going to be able to see our trip live next week. Whenever we have fundraisers or efforts for raising money, that's a lot of where we promote those things. So if you want to stay on kind of the pulse of what we're doing, I would say Instagram's the place. We of course have a website, theculturecp.org. That's where donations can come in. If you do choose to donate to one of our causes, you'll see that after you hit the donate button, there is a drop down of all of our Ugandan partners. You can select someone that we are partnered with. Grace, Home of Hope, Faces Up Uganda is a new one. Arlington Academy of Hope. These are all people that do need support, and I will vouch for every one of them is incredibly worthy and deserving of whatever they can get. It goes right to them, 100% of the cost. We take no percentage whatsoever, and it supports their efforts. So you don't need to give to us. You can give to them. We want to be the facilitator of that, and those are the places to do it.
Fantastic. Well, Josh, thank you for your time. I hope you can have a little bit of lunch before you have to go back to your day gig.
Yeah, thank you.
And those folks there at Dynatrace, you are lucky to have a guy like Josh on your team and the culture.
Yeah, I'm lucky to be there too. I mean, even just the fact that they put up with me doing these two things sometimes is it's very appreciated. So
I think they're lucky to have you. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the updates from your trip next week. And travel safe.
Thanks, Rob. Always a pleasure.
All right, take care.